is such an honor to be able to be before you and talk about something that I'm so passionate about, and that's your voice. I think your voice is often linked to your identity. So today, before we talk about identity, I get to say this. I want to talk about winning the war on your voice. Back to identity. What did you like to do when you played? For me, I was little, 6 or 7, and we lived in this old house that had massive steps. I loved to climb to the top, and I'd get to the top, and I would preach. I was Catholic. It was a good homily. I also gave out communion with little chocolate things, so I was good with communion too. In the same house, my dad brought home modern technology of the day, a tape recorder with a microphone and a tape in it. He put it under the bed in front of all of us, 5 of us, and he said, "Don't touch it." He went off to work, and I went sneaking with Mom didn't see into the room, pulled that thing out, and I brought it into my room. It was just a masterpiece. It had a microphone. So I practiced for hours into that, all sorts of voices. I really liked Carol Burnett, so I was really working on that comedy act. When all 4 brothers separately came to me and said, "Theresa, the only one who's laughing is Mom." So I ditched the comedy act. From that house, we moved again, not to China. And in this house, there were just 2 little steps. And I remember thinking, doggone. But I looked over here and I saw an apple cart. I said, I'm going to get on top of this. So I got on top of it. I had found Jesus at this house. And I got on top of it and I preached to the birds, the bees, and the apple trees. They needed Jesus. Threads. Do you see this? Apple cart. Theresa, for the last 15 years, opens her Apple computer or her Apple phone. With filters, of course. I was passionate to find a platform. I was a really good professional golfer, All-American, went into the pros. I thought if I just played good enough, I'll get a platform to share my faith. I crashed and burned after 3 years, really crashed. And I miraculously, God is amazing. He opens doors. I landed at an FM Christian radio station, one of the biggest FMs around in that Atlanta area. So I got paid to talk and talk into a microphone. I got paid to pray on the air. About 7 years into that career, the war started. I got married. Let's let that sink in for a second. This is the trouble right off the bat. My maiden name is Shrek. I'm Shrek before the movie, though. And people would come up to him and say, "Hey, Dave Shrek." Oh, he hated it. But who got that? Yeah. Make sure you say, "This is Theresa Croft" when you're, yeah. So I'm giving you just a feeling. I don't need to give the details. I will say, it was hard to keep a friend then. So when someone rallies around me and prays for me, I meet a friend, that's such a treat. So let me fast forward, can I? I realize I'm going backwards, but let me fast forward. It was 2 years ago, y'all. Almost to the date, October 3rd. We had sold our house, and so we were cleaning up, packing. My husband was outside getting the burn barrel stoked. We were burning debris. And this is what I found out. It had rained, so he was stoking it, and he made the mistake of getting gasoline. So he threw the gasoline on the burn barrel where the thing that he threw that had the gasoline in kicked back at him. I'm inside, packing. I got a friend. I no sooner put a piece of china down in the box, and I look out, and he's fully inflamed. It's like he was on fire, head to toe. So I grabbed something, later I found out it was flammable, ran down, and all I could do was roll, and he wasn't rolling, and then I just froze, speaking in tongues, I think. And we watched him rip that fire off, and watched him take the shirt that had been fully on fire. He got flash burned, he got burned in his ear. He didn't go to the hospital right away. He had to go to his favorite doctor, so that night was hell. Then the next morning, we took him to the doctor, 3rd-degree burns for 30% of his body. He didn't want to take pain pills. He did not want to go to the hospital. Enters Nurse T. 2 weeks of just, awful. think he almost hit me. I'm having to unwrap, because he was in a place where he couldn't wrap it, and wrap and get chewed out and yelled in every foul language. So after about 2 weeks, I said, hey, Dave, don't you think you should go to the hospital? He threw gas on me. Oh, you're playing the victim mentality. Oh, I stepped back. I knew what I was dealing with. We later moved. That was a miracle. But we couldn't find a house to rent, so we lived in this little camper we had bought. Little camper. And the screams continued at night. Papa, help me sleep. During the day at me, I just couldn't understand it. One day we were working on the land, and he called me effing idiot so many times. Then he gets back in the truck, he looks over me, and he says, I need to get my soul together. You think? Wish I could have said that then. Then there was another day. He was just, I don't know what it was, but we were driving somewhere, and I was just sitting there like bleeding and just hurt. Because this is supposed to be my husband, but I was already used to it. But it was still, this one really hurt. And as I drove down the road, I just started to write. And this literally, word by word, is what came out. He was over there driving. The deep well of God appears to be running dry. The hand of God seems to be waving goodbye. The string that ties two hearts together as one seems to be torn, ripped, and undone, leaving my heart in tatters, leaving my heart undone. The loud shrieks of pain at me make me want to stay in a pit and hide. The war continued. I sent a picture of him off to my kids, and I didn't realize, sometimes when you're in trauma, you don't really see clear. He was continuing to have really problems with his body. His face was turning yellow, ding, 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 and no ding, ding there. I invited my kids over, and they looked in horror. They're like, and I remember before they left, and they decided they got to take him to the hospital, but I remember when they left, my daughter was like, I thought maybe she was that way because she was separated from her dad. And she whispered, Mom, Dad has cancer. No, he doesn't have cancer. The next day, you notice that? We waited, and he got the diagnosis, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The war continued. February, March. It's not taking pain meds, y'all. Will you just talk to me? No. April. May, toward May, he started taking pain meds, but he died June 5th of 2022. And let me tell you, I was by his bedside, and the way he died was traumatic in itself. Gasping, drowning, gasping. One minute I was crying, and the next minute I was yelling at him, will you get on with it? You had mother issues. Go be with your mom. Can you feel that? So he passed. I spent some good time in Australia with some friends to try to heal. I drank lots of beer. About the time I came home, November, I had received a letter from my son-in-law who transcribed what my husband wanted to say to me. And my husband in that letter admitted 26 years of lying, cheating, cussing. Forgive me, forgive me. You know, for his sake, I was really glad, because when he meets Jesus, at least he confessed on letter. But it made me freaking mad. So I spent all of December at night numbing out gin seltzers. Around January, I realized that wasn't doing my neural pathways any good. So I stopped. But let me tell you something, guys. It was Jesus and coffee. I had to have at least 2 hours of Jesus and coffee. I'm really telling you, even to this day, it's almost like, oh, do I have to go to work? Okay, I got to get here. It's not a religious thing, please. Not religion. It is a relationship where I had to heal in the secret place. Yes. But I needed help. I was having feelings of not enough. My body started, I had watery eyes, and I would get lethargic and have to fight to stay awake at work. I really believe along came a miracle, and that was in a neurocycle facilitator. It was a miracle how I found her, and I said, I need what you got. And so week after week after week, we did business on the trauma that was in my body. Week after week after week, and then daily with the Neurocycle app with Dr. Caroline Leaf. going and tearing that stuff off. You know what was the biggest thing that I had to tear off? I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. And it showed in always trying to outperform, always trying to. But another miracle happened, though. Not only was I getting healed, but I found a friend that I didn't have to hide. I mean, I'm done with the neurocycle, and I'm still have a friend. So in conclusion, I just want to say something to you. Your voice is so needed. I always like to think of Acts, where Paul and Silas were chained up. And they praised God, and the chains came off. And they saw the guard. The guard came running to him and said, "What must I do to be saved?" They preached the word, and they shared the word. This is what's going to happen to you. People are going to come up to you. They're going to say, "Virginia, what must I do to make money from home?" You're going to have the answer. They're going to come up to you and say, "Hey, I really want to be a leader like Michelle." You're going to have the answer. "I want to be a freaking good speaker like Lisa and Molly." You're going to have the answer, and it might come into just simply GPA. You're going to win the war, because the war is meant to be won, because lined in your very DNA is your voice to speak to the world. I hope I can just end with this. Your voice is the much needed salt to a world that's lost its appetite at a loving meal at the Father's table. Your voice is light to a world that thinks darkness is normal and struggles with enmity and conflict. Your voice is not about a gory story. It's about a glory story.